So, how are you today? Can you have another one? Can you have another one? Okay, I will start. I have this iPhone with me, and it has 2 TED speakers on it. I can watch them every day, on the plane, on the train. It's Ken Robinson, and Elizabeth Gilbert. So I'm very fond of these people and of these talks, and I'm very proud that I can be here in Russia, in Perm, to do a TED talk. Thank you for that. I want to talk today to you about talent, about young people. And there's another thing I will say before I start, and that is that it makes me very happy to see so many young people here, to see many women here, and to see many young people here, because I visit a lot of conferences in the world, and very, very often the rooms are filled with gray-haired people like me. And I can tell you one thing, this is the secret of my story. Creativity, innovation doesn't come from gray-haired old people. It comes from you. And you should watch every day Ken Robinson on TED and remember what he's telling you, because there is a lot of hope in his story. The picture you see here is Westergasfabriek in Amsterdam. It's a derelict, it was a derelict gas factory, and I worked in that place for 15 years. I was the manager of that site, and the local government of Amsterdam, they asked me to create that space into a park, to reuse the buildings for cultural activities, and to find a solution for the very contaminated site. And these 15 years in this spot in Amsterdam helped me in building a tremendous international network. And about the things that I learned in that network, and now I need this thing, I'm going to tell you something today. So basically, these projects that I worked on, revitalization of industrial heritage, are in cities. And usually, these projects are in cities that are in trouble, because most of the time these are basically industrial cities, and they have a big challenge today. And before I can talk about that a little bit more, I wanted to point out this, and that is that 10% of the population was living in cities before 1900, 50% today, and that it is estimated that 75% of the human population, you already showed this picture in China, because in China, India, Indonesia, there's an enormous movement going on into cities, but also in countries like Brazil, and in Russia, by the way. Most people in Russia want to live in Moscow or in St. Petersburg. So it's not only people willing to live in cities, but there is a big difference between cities among each other. And the point I want to make is that the more diversely based cities with a historic context and a mixed economy are more attractive than the cities with a unique basis, like an industrial city. Because when the industry is gone, it's very difficult to find a new basis and to find a new reason for people willing to be in these cities. Now, I show you this list, and you don't have to look at the list because it's the obvious list. This is a list from a magazine called Foreign Policy. They publish a list of attractive cities every 2 years, and they put a lot of factors in that, and it's like, how important is a city outside its own borders, how much innovation is there, etc., etc., etc. And you can imagine that every city in the world wants to be in the list. Like every soccer team wants to be in the left part of the list and not in the right part, because then you are going down. You want to be in the left part of the list. So every city that is in the left part of the list is proud, and the cities that in the lower part are in the lower part of the right part of the list, they feel unhappy, but there are thousands of cities which are not on the list. And these are the cities that we are talking about. Now, there is a lot of discussion going on in the last 10 years or so of talking about creative cities. And what we hear, I don't know how this is in Russia, but in the rest of, in Europe and in America, the idea of the creative city seems to be the answer to all our problems. If we are going to be a creative city, all our problems are gone and we are saved. So, you were talking about China. I think that in the 11th five-year plan of the Chinese government has announced that every Chinese city is going to be a creative city. That last year, President Medvedev of Russia has said in his State of the Union that every Russian city is going to be a creative city. So what is a creative city? Is it really going to save us? I think I could talk for hours about this. I usually talk for hours about this. I will skip a lot of my talk and go to the basis. And the basis is this. It is that you need a balance. It's not about creativity alone. Of course, creativity is very important, but knowledge is important and tradition is important. So you have to be connected to the land. You need some belief, you need some reason for being there. You need some linearity, some logic, some knowledge before you can do something. But you also need that creativity. And when you have the balance, then it's okay. So when we listen again to Ken Robinson talking about education, in fact, Ken was saying that our whole educational system is in the lower left corner of this graph. Yeah, it's the whole education system in the world is based on the industrialization system, and knowledge is mathematics and languages. And what he is saying is that we need creativity in it. And in Islamic countries, and in strong Protestant, Catholic, or Jewish countries, the traditional books are very important in education because there you study the Quran or the Bible. So what I think is that you have to be in the middle, that you need that balance. And that is the right way to develop and to be a interesting city. But what is it basically all about? These cities are planned by city planners. And the decisions are made by politicians. And the politicians and the city planners are usually in my group. But the people that have to make the decision is you. That are the people between 20 and 35 years. Because in every country, the statistics show that the group between 20 and 35 is the group that is moving. And the people that are older than 45 usually stay. So if you want to do something in your city, you have to attract this young group of people. And these people don't vote in the ballot. They don't vote with the political system. They vote with their feet. Because that is what they do. They move. If you're talented, you just go. Yeah? So this is why The Economist wrote already in 2006 a big item on talent. Why it is so important and why it is so hard to find. So the big universities, the interesting art schools, they produce talent. And that talent is like football players. They go everywhere. Yeah? They are not like the people from Tunisia on the boat to Italy and drowning. That is another type of movement. No, we are talking about the brightest and the strongest. They are moving. So basically, what every city should do if you want to have a future is attract talent. Now, how do they do that? Because in a way, cities are trying to do that. And there are different methods. One of the methods is to build an icon. Because if you build an icon, it's like if you want, as a person, if you want to attract somebody, you make yourself nice. You put on a nice hat or you buy some jewelry and that creates a kind of icon and makes you more attractive. At least that is what you are thinking. So here we have Stuttgart in Germany. They make Mercedes-Benzes, and they think that by building this fantastic museum, it's one of the most beautiful buildings in the world that I know. It's built by Dutch architect Ben van Berkel. Beautiful museum, completely filled with cars in the middle of nowhere, is an icon. And many, many cities do that. We can see it all over the world. Calatrava, Van Berkel, Colas, all these guys make an enormous amount of money by putting all these icons everywhere in the world, and cities think that they become attractive. But basically, this is interesting because it's a branding strategy, and the branding strategy works for tourists. But we need more. You don't need only the visitors, you need the people who want to stay. So, what we see in really industrial areas that are in big trouble is that the infrastructure that has to be made to put the city back on the map, to create new spaces, new possibilities for people to work, like here in the rural area, that the infrastructure itself becomes the icon. Which is very interesting because then we already see some kind of integration. This is what I like. Now, to make a long story short, I think that this new economy, and if it is a creative economy or the post-modern economy, as some other people tell us, that every economy needs a market. And that despite all the technical means that we have to SMS, to Twitter, and whatever we do, we want to sit somewhere and listen to each other's stories. That's what we are doing here today. That is the basis of the success of the TED Talks. People talking and people listening to stories. And that is as old as the world. And that will stay, to listen to each other's stories. And this is why I think that in every city, every successful city that is able to attract talent, the public space, the semi-public space, is the most important thing that we have. And this is why I showed you this picture in Beijing, in China, where you have 798, a cultural hotspot, and this is exactly what they did there. They put art there. This is in balance. There is art, the fish. There is greenery. Yeah, it's durable. We have green space, but this here is the most important part. And this is where the people sit outside and where you feel welcome. And when you are able, in your city, to create places where people feel welcome, that's the key to your success. So I will end my talk with this slide, which is Westergasfabriek again. And after these 15 years working on this project and talking to many people, I came to the conclusion that this is the biggest gift that was possible for me to give to the city of Amsterdam, a place where people can meet. Thank you.